Good evening. So we are here for our last panel discussion of the day and for the golf show. This panel discussion is on turf grasses for golf, and we have Mr. Rohit Damani, President of 5S Turf, with us. Mr. Yadvinder Shah, Golf Course Superintendent for BPGC. Mr. Vinod Goyal, CEO, Agricare Corporation, and Ms. Nusrat Gul. I don't think she's logged in yet. Moderator, Mr. Indrajit Balotia, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Vijit. Welcome, gentlemen, and we look forward to interesting conversation. I know Vinodji will have to leave early. So my first question to Vinodji, for golf turf, where do you think the turf grass technology, where does India stand compared to the developed nations in golf turf टेक्नोलॉजी? विनोद जी।
सर, मेरा कहना है कि गोल्फ टर्फ टेक्नोलॉजी इंडिया में बहुत लैग बिहाइंड है यदि हम टेक्नोलॉजी की बात करते हैं, क्योंकि वी आर नॉट एबल टू प्रोड्यूस वर्ल्ड क्लास ग्रासेस एंड हमारी रिसर्च भी नहीं है उसके ऊपर। केवल एक स्कोप बनता है कि जो लोकल ग्रास है हमारी वो एक्लेमेटाइज है इंडियन कंडीशंस पे, उनको मेंटेन करना बहुत आसान है। और बहुत ऐसे गोल्फ कोर्सेज इंडिया में हैं, हाई एंड गोल्फ कोर्सेज भी हैं जिसमें कि वो लोकल ग्रासेस के ऊपर सर्वाइव है, वो बहुत अच्छा काम करते हैं। जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल डीजीसी में भी फेयरवे के अंदर लोकल दूब है और उन्होंने अभी रिनोवेशन के बाद भी उस लोकल दूब को मेंटेन किया है। तो ग्रीन्स के ऊपर तो इम्पोर्टेड ग्रास लगाते हैं लो कट की वजह से, लेकिन फिर भी फेयरवे के ऊपर लोकल ग्रास इक्वली सक्सेसफुल है, कोई प्रॉब्लम उसमें नहीं है। नंबर 2, काम करने की जरूरत है कि लोकल ग्रासेस को, इंडिया में हो रहा है वो काम। रोहित दमानी सामने बैठे हैं, वो भी हमारे ऐसे एक्सपर्ट हैं जो कि आजकल शॉर्ट फॉर्म इंडिया में चलाते हैं और वो लोकल ग्रास के ऊपर बड़ा अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं और वो ग्रासेस अपने गोल्फ कोर्सेज में काम आती हैं। ऑलमोस्ट एवरी गोल्फ कोर्स में फेयरवे में अमूमन लोकल ग्रास रहती है, तो उसमें प्योर ग्रास देना और उसको प्योर ग्रास को प्रॉपर तरीके से लगाना, उसकी नर्सरी तैयार करने के बाद गोल्फ कोर्स में उसका बहुत बड़ा बिजनेस है, स्कोप है और काफी अच्छे एक्सपर्ट लोगों की वहां जरूरत है ऑल द टाइम।
राइट, सो मिस्टर दमानी, इफ यू कैन also answer this question.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for having me over. It's been a very eventful 3 days that we've seen, and we are the last man out, so we don't know whether we are really interested in batting or we are interested in calling in curtains, but still. As Vinodji said, we are really, really far behind the 9 ball over here. We do not give the importance that grass is given across the world on grasses. Turf grass research is a subject which doesn't exist. Even when it comes to making your selection of turf grasses, it's left way behind the pecking order. Probably something that you're going to sit with for 15 years or 20 years, the kind of investment in time in analyzing what you should be with is missing. That involvement needs to increase all around. So in a nutshell, no, we have a long way to go, and we have our own limitations, our own compulsions, but not too much to write home about as of the moment.
Right. So Mr. Goyal, I'll just ask you one more question. Uske baad, I think you will be leaving. So for golf turf, what is preferable, vegetative or seeded? Which one is better?
Sir, seeded is better only because seeded golf course, seeded turf में you get the purity of grass. जितना भी सीडेड टर्फ है, मोस्टली इंडिया में सीडिंग जो टर्फ है वो इम्पोर्टेड है और उसमें प्योरिटी ऑफ ग्रास इंश्योर होता है। वेजिटेटिव में प्रॉब्लम है कि रिसर्च नहीं होने की वजह से प्योरिटी ऑफ ग्रास इंश्योर नहीं होता। यदि प्योरिटी ऑफ ग्रास इंश्योर हो जाए तो वेजिटेटिव भी बहुत सक्सेसफुल है, क्योंकि कुछ वैरायटी ऑफ ग्रासेज में सीडेड हो ही नहीं सकता। तो उसमें जहाँ सीडेड हो ही नहीं सकता वहां पे तो वेजिटेटिव से ही काम चलता है। नंबर 2, जितना भी ग्रीन्स के ऊपर ग्रास है फॉरेन से भी आता है, सब वेजिटेटिव आता है। तो इसीलिए दोनों स्प्रिग का भी और सीड का दोनों का इक्वल इंपॉर्टेंस है एज पर द लोकेशन ऑफ द ग्रास।
Right. Thank you so much, sir. I think you'll be leaving now. We really it was a great pleasure having you here.
I will miss this panel, but I have to leave. Please, thank you.
Right. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Damani. I'll come back to you, but before that, to Mr. Shah. What is it that you're looking for when you're choosing grass for your golf course? I mean, being a superintendent and looking after the golf course, BPGC is one of my favorite golf courses, and I played my first junior tournament in '82 there, and I have a very special place. I know there's a huge challenge in Bombay with the rain, everything, but what is it that you're looking for when you're choosing a grass type?
First of all, I hope everybody is able to hear me.
Yes, yes.
So first of all, I'd like to give my thanks to GCSMAI for providing such a platform and for such an informative few days which we have had here. And starting with your question, and you are always welcome at BPGC whenever you are free. So for your question, the thing is that what we are looking at is, if we say on technical basis, what we are looking at is a grass which can give us the best surfaces. And how does a grass give us a best surface on a golf course? Is that it should be tolerant to very low moving. It should be tolerant to high traffic stress. It should be tolerant to the environmental stress available in that location, and it should be you should be able to resist the pest and other environmental stress like drought or something like that in that area. So this is a very basic technical requirement. And for this, what happens is that we have various grasses. Now, as Rohit rightly pointed that, very less amount of research. The research or technical these things developments are a totally different thing. But as an end user, when I say that what grass should be used on a golf course, I have seen, working as a, before this I was working with a construction company also. So I've seen that clients do not give that much importance to the grass. It's like this, that a golf course is being built from bottom to up. You're putting in everything just for the reason that the thing which is going to be on the top, that is the grass, it performs well. But after doing everything well, if you put something wrong on the top, everything comes back to square one. So what we need to look on a grass while we are making a new developing a new course or something, is that a grass which can perform well in that environment. And if there are any strains in that environment, something like, for example, the case of BPGC, the irrigation water quality. Now, this is a challenge which is going to be prevalent in the rest of the country also in coming time. So this is something which we look into the grasses, basically for providing better surfaces.
Thank you. So, Mr. Damani, I just wanted to ask you, what is the advantage, or is it preferable to have native Indian grass varieties for our golf courses? What is your view on that?
It's the definition of native somehow is not clear, and neither is the selection parameter. What you're going to put down, it really depends on how it is going to respond to the kind of resources you're going to put down while maintaining it. So when you say native, is it native to the subcontinent? Is it native to the place you are in? Or what is the definition of native that you're applying it to? Now, when I look at a broader classification of the word native, almost all Bermuda grasses, almost all of them originate out of Africa. They have an African parent in all of them. And probably this happened way down in the evolution process, that today some amount of Bermuda is found in India as well as in Africa and across continents. So while I would like to, this word is being extremely loosely coined. The true test of any turf grass is really what kind of value you get when you're going to put any kind of resource down, beginning with water. So if I'm going to put the stress that it is under, I may go out onto a field and find that a grass has been growing there locally for donkey's years. But really, how is it going to perform when people start walking on it? When I have machines running over it? When I'm going to cut it low? All these things really are really not researched. The kind of money that is required to pump into this, to conduct this, I do a little bit of it on the scales that I can. But beyond that, as an industry, till this is not justified, it becomes economically unsustainable. Today, when you look at a body like the NTEP, they run programs at 12 stations across the US for years together, evaluating multiple species of turf grasses, and every breeder wanting to be a part of that because that is considered as the holy grail as to where you stood in your NTEP rankings. This is missing. We need to get our building blocks correct. Till that time, we are virtually dependent on somebody else's research. It's like we discussed at the very beginning. Where are we in terms of turf grass research vis-a-vis worldwide? No, it all boils down to the whole basic synedrome. We just classify one grass as native that we call as Calcutta doob. Now every grass mutates over any period of time. There's foundation 1, foundation 2. So actually the Calcutta doob that DGC may be sitting on may be a mutated version, which is actually a very interesting version of the original Calcutta doob. Is it the true to type Calcutta doob? Nobody knows. This is where certification comes in. This is where a lot of research ancillary to turf grass and awareness around turf grass steps in. If I'm able to answer your question, Indrajit.
Right. Vijit, welcome to the chat. I'll be asking you a couple of questions, and I'm sure you can come in at any point of time. So, Mr. Shah, I just wanted to ask you what can be the right approach for turf selection for a golf course. So, how do you actually choose the turf?
Well, as for approach, discussion which we are having right now, indigenous versus exotic grasses. Now, first of all, the perimeter is going to be the budget. Like, what kind of a golf course is looking for that kind of grass? Now, as rightly said by Rohit here, the term native, as it has been misused very, it's been used very loosely around here in India. If you'd see the doob grass which we are talking about in Delhi Golf Club, that doob grass is known as Calcutta doob. And right now, when the renovation was done in Delhi Golf Club, they could not get the original Calcutta doob. So they had to, replace it with selection 1, which is also a variety of Bermuda grass. So
I'll interrupt you here. Not only did we run out of selection 1, after that we used evergreen also.
Yeah. So this is the problem when we are talking about native versus exotic. Now, saying usually that natives are better than exotics, this is the kind of problem which we land up in when we are talking in these terms without technical knowledge, without having a perfect research behind all that work. So, as you asked, coming back to the question, how the best approach is going to be for Indian context. The best approach which can be is that we have to have certain professionals, international professionals, come in who have experiences with different kind of grasses, and the committee of the golf course they choose between 3 to 5 types of grasses. They can be native grasses, they can be exotic grasses, and then we start a trial of that grass in that golf course in certain sample areas, like on a putting green, on a tee, on a par 3 tee, on a certain part of a fairway. And then we give that grass a season or 2, and then we choose between these 3 or 4 grasses which suits us, which suits our environment, what kind of inputs we are able to provide to that grass, how our team is responding to that grass, and how the golfers are responding to that grass. Now, this is a very long process. This long process is just because of the reason that we don't have that kind of documentation and recording with us, which is supposed to be done through universities and through research centers. So after this thing is going to be something like a 1 or 2 years of an operation, just selecting a grass. And then after selecting that grass, we'll have to prepare a nursery for that grass before the construction actually starts, so that by the time the fairways are ready for the grassing or the greens are ready for grassing, we are ready with the grass in that nursery. So this is going to be the best approach. Otherwise, what happens is that if we are comfortable, if we have a very good consultant, if we have people with far better experience and knowledge, they come in and they guide us. And then at many places, like I'll give you an example of BPGC here. When the renovation was done, the whole committee sat and a discussion was done for selection of the grass. Out of everything else, like at the time when the renovation was done in BPGC, Paspalam was just a very new thing. It was just a concept rather than a product being used widely. But BPGC went out with Paspalam. Why? Because it was a very educated selection. It was with the people like David Prinkle. We had people like Micah Woods who gave their recommendations. They did the whole thing, and the committee, they took that decision that we should go ahead with this grass. And today, with the salinity condition of BPGC, we can surely say that if it wasn't Paspalam, then then the whole renovation program would have been in a jeopardy. The salinity level right now here at BPGC, it's alarming. So selection of right grass, that is how it's very important for a golf course. And just saying this thing that we can take grass from another golf course and put it in our golf course and just we can have the same kind of conditions here, that's something very far-fetched in technical terms. If a client is putting in so much money for constructing a golf course, we are having the best of the designers, we are having the best of the materials put down, we are having best of the drainage put down, everything is best. And then after that, on top of it, finish that all, we are putting in a grass which we are not even sure how it will perform. So that tells you how the project, the planning is going on.
Right. Vijit, I wanted to ask you a question. So for example, say you're coming into Tolly or any of the courses in Calcutta. So what is your checklist? What are the things that you check for when you decide on the grass? I know it's a very basic question, but I think a lot of committees would just want to know that what is your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 checkpoints where you first consider before you decide on the grass.
Firstly, as a golf architect, we never select the grass on our own. We always involve somebody like Yadvinder or Rohit who are experts in this field. We basically coordinate with these guys, trying to basically coordinate in terms of what we want the golf course to look and play like. What kind of playability features are we looking at? Are we looking at firm surfaces? How do we want the ball to react once it lands on the ground? So those are the basic ideas. Then obviously, one thing that I do for every project that I am involved in, like Rohit mentioned, native can be a very broad term. So whatever grasses that I see on a particular site, if I'm walking a new golf course, so whatever grasses I see, I make it a point to at least test them out on that very site or just off-site in different conditions. So for example, if I'm building a golf course down south, where a place where I see some different kind of grass that I'm not aware of, I'll make it a point to have a small little, not a nursery, but a little patch of grass and give it a season to see how it reacts during the summer, monsoon and winters. Put it under a little bit of stress in terms of mowing, in terms of lack of irrigation, just to see if it can sustain. That's step one. So if that kind of a grass can sustain and thrive in certain conditions, we can use, then we know we can at least use it somewhere on the golf course. Then it's about finding it appropriate for fairways, roughs or tees. That's the next step. So then you put it under some more stress in terms of mowing heights. You see if it can be cut at fairway height or not. If not, you are at least assured that this is a grass that can be planted in the rough areas. or in the native areas. Because the native, if you're picking up a native grass, it'll be more sort of hardy and easier to maintain, at least in the low maintenance areas like the unmaintained grass under the trees or plantation areas. So that's broadly the selection. But as far as the greens and all are concerned, so if I were to walk onto an existing golf course, I think a very helpful thing is to ask around and see other golf courses in the vicinity. I think that's something that we need to learn from internationally. If you look at a greenskeeper or a golf architect abroad, they will work together all the golf courses in the vicinity. So if you were to build a new existing golf course, new greens on an existing golf course in Delhi, you would want to visit golf courses like the Delhi golf course and DLF, who have the same grass like the mini Verdi, the ultra dwarf grass, but at the same time visit courses like JP and ITC also, which have a TIF dwarf. So compare the playability issues there, talk to the superintendents and see what the maintenance pressures they have to deal with. So like I said, I'm not the ultimate authority as an architect to select the right kind of grass for a project. It's the experts that are there on the panel who are.
Right. Okay, so this is for both Mr. Shah and Mr. Damani. If you have an option of importing grass or using the local grass, what would be the price difference? And why would you choose one over the other? So 2 points, two part.
Can I go first on it?
Sure, please.
Yeah. So you're asking the cost difference of importing a grass and getting a native grass to be done. So
why would you choose? I mean, what would be the reasons for you to choose between the two?
So if I have an option, if somebody comes to me and says that this is a new variety and this is going to do wonders for your greens, then it's something which I like to test first. And then if I have a native grass which I know is doing well, and I want to see that thing on my greens, then I'll take both the grasses and put them on a sample test. Like I'll put them on 2 greens on my golf course and see how those greens are going to behave in the whole season, so that I know what that grass needs different from the current grass. So if I'm going to do that, I'm going to make a whole green for that grass, the native one and the imported one. And then after that, I'm going to do a whole maintenance of that whole grass for a whole 1 year. And after a selection, like if we come to this thing that the members also, tick on this thing that the native grass is doing better than the exotic one, then what I do is I rip apart that whole green and make a whole nursery for that. Now that nursery, because since on an average for an 18-hole golf course, the green size is somewhere around 3 acres. So for a normal 3 acres green, you have to have nursery for at least 1 acre. So putting down a nursery of 1 acre is somewhere nearly, if you have to put it with the greens specification, which you are going to do for the new green, it's somewhere near 1.5 crore or something like that cost. Now compare that cost to an exotic. I can import that exotic directly at the time of the construction. I can seed that thing, I can propagate that. Or if I have the time, I will propagate a nursery. But then you see how much cost am I saving in doing that thing. Importing that exotic, I don't have to import a whole 1 acre of that exotic for the nursery. I have to just import a fraction, a third of that whole amount. With a third of that grass, I can multiply that thing into an acre. So for instance, you can say like 1 square foot of that grass can be planted in 3 square foot. So 1 bushel can be made into at least 3 to 4 square meters of that area. So now compare that cost of first getting that native grass, because where am I getting that native grass from? I'll have just 1 or 2 pure plants of that native grass. Then I'll have to multiply that 2 or 3 plants to 1 billion to get into that green or to get into that nursery. And then from that nursery, I'll be transferring that. Whereas for an exotic, I'll have a specific amount imported. I'll just put it in the nursery. Nursery cost remains the same even for the exotic, even for the native. So where is the cost difference which we are talking about here? If Rohit will put some weight to that.
Also, Rohit, when you're adding to this, I also wanted to know, like you, one of the importers of grass or suppliers for imported exotic cultivar varieties in India. What are the challenges that you face when there's a supply that you need to do in any city in India? What is the process,
Uh,
overall?
yeah,
From
let me answer both these questions, and I have a third one from Ben also, which I'd like to get into after while I'm replying to all of them. So taking Indrajit's question first. Indrajit, in a nutshell, we are struggling for volume. If we get the volumes, economies of scale is the name of the game. If we get the volumes, we can be extremely competitive, price competitive, and within budgets for a lot of courses. Unfortunately, our history and our basic ability to abide by technology and technological compulsions in terms of patents is viewed down very poorly across the world. Turf grass piracy is a rampant subject in our country, which is the truth, whether we like it or we don't, in terms of patented turf grass being illegally multiplied. And it's not only our country, it happens at various places across the world, but more so over here, is my opinion. I may be incorrect, I may be wrong over here, but no offense to anybody who's so at the scales, there is virtually no price difference between a good certified native variety vis-a-vis certified imported variety. If I can really build up the scales, for which people need to understand that certification is a process. Like if you walk into an organization and you see that it is ISO 9001 certified, you up, it's a guarantee that you are complying to certain processes. So there are various certification bodies. One of them is ITGAP. Now, it costs money as a grower to have ITGAP come down, certify your farm, do all of that. But at the end of the day, what a person like Yadvendra, when he's putting the grass down on his course, or a person like Ben, all these guys are sticking their neck around saying that, okay, I know what I've got. So everything that they do handles in that particular fashion. Have I been able to answer your question, Indrajit? So
Right.
to the next one.
Yeah.
Vijit, with regards to your question, importing vegetative turf grasses into the country is a cumbersome process as of the moment. It does involve a lot of plant entry quarantine issues, which we've discussed at length before when we've spoken, and we've kind of found that to be a hurdle every time. We are trying to solve that, but there are biological compulsions when we've been speaking to the plant quarantine authorities, which they are justified. You don't want an unknown pathogen entering your entire ecosystem, and then you having to, the ramifications for that are far too much for them to raise. As of the moment, one of the most common varieties that we are looking at in terms of greens grasses, they come with a 9-month quarantine. It can be shortened. Some countries allow a direct to plant, but that 9-month quarantine is a deal breaker places. There are other promising grasses that you can look at in terms of seeded grasses. If Nuzat was here, her life is a lot much more easier with cool season grasses because all of them are seeded. She doesn't really need to get into the vegetative multiplication part of it. But there is a lot of promising research that has happened in seeded seashore paspalums, like Pure Dynasty. It's expensive, but it is a grass that can go from wall to wall, and you can maintain it for your greens, for your teas, for your fairways, everything. It's an end-to-end solution. So if it fits the budget, if it fits the overall playability that you have in mind, it's one of the grasses that does well, comes in a seeded format, and you don't really have to struggle with the plant entry quarantine issues. But yes, it is a challenge that we are facing, and we are trying to work around that. And economies of scale, and this is where we've spoken very often, that we need industry awareness to come in, that you're going to be sitting with this product for 15 years, 15 to 20 years. Just give it the required time and the diligence before you make your call and pull the trigger on that.
I'd like
to answer your question, Vijay.
I'd like to add
yes,
one more point to this.
Yeah, please.
Sorry. I'd like to just add one more point to this discussion of indigenous versus imported. cost factor, if we are talking about getting these native grasses. Now, what happens is that this is, I'm telling you from experience, which I faced here in BBCC. We were seeing some density problem in our fairways during the monsoons last year. So what happened was we are looking at some certain ways of boosting that density. So the best part would have been to put in more grass, put in more pure grass into that thing. Now, for that, what happened was you can say it's a good thing that we bought our grass, our pure certified grass through right channels when the development was done. So we went back to the to Atlas Turf and we asked them that how we can boost our density of our platinum paspala which we have in our fairways. And they got back to us and they told us that there are seeded varieties which because platinum is a vegetative variety. They gave us that we have seeded varieties which are very near to what platinum is, and you can just overseed them in your fairways to increase the density of your fairways. Now, this is the kind of, you can say, after sales service or serviceability which is available when you're going through the right channels, when you know you're getting the right product. Now, with the natives, this would not have been possible. We would not have had this kind of give and take situation if we would have gone with the native grasses or something like that. That's my two bit onto this point. Take on, Rohit.
Now, to Ben's question about Zoysia being a performer in Southeast Asia, and what is the likelihood of us seeing these cultivars in India in the next 3 to 5 years? How do you think they would perform in the Indian climate? Just a few days back, Ben and myself were having this conversation in person. And yes, Zoysias have an interesting future. Earlier, the only Zoysia variety that we see in India is a landscape-specific variety. But coming out onto, there's a lot of Zoysia research that is happening through 2 programs, right? One of them is the ultrafine program, which is just under development right now. And there's another variety that is a proven variety. Those are the Xeons and so on and so forth, which we saw at the APGSA last year, which through Ben's program in the US. Almost all of the research on turf grasses happens out of the US. One of the statements that Wing Commander AK sir made the other day was that is the fountainhead of golf across the world as of the moment. And that pretty much holds true for everything that we do. Zoysia, Ben, will really do well in India in certain locations with its increased maintenance dependency diminishing, so on and so forth. But we've seen this scenario before where cycles play out, where a few years ago, Paspalum was thought to be the wonder grass, and we thought that was a solution to everything. And then Bermuda made a comeback. And then now we have Zoysia as well. So in my opinion, everything will coexist. And this is the place where we've got to work with our designers, our players, and come up with a solution that, okay, evaluate all 3 of them and then make your call. But Zoysia, yes, it is a grass for the future, which was earlier non-existent. It is a 3rd warm season grass that we can definitely be looking at for everything. You have a Zoysia for your greens, you have a Zoysia for your fairways, and it does really well where you have a lot of humidity. It's right up there with a lot of other grasses. So it's not only humidity, it's desert. It's there across everywhere. So Vijit, you have 3 grasses that you can be looking at. When you're looking at a warm season climate, you're looking at a Cynodon, you're looking at a Zoysia, and you're looking at a Paspalum as far as these 3 major warm season grasses go.
Absolutely. No, Zoysia has come up really well. Like all the golf courses in Southeast Asia now coming in, mostly are coming up with Zoysia grass. That's what I've seen. And they're extremely good in terms of playability also.
It makes perfect business sense for me because they're not seeded as of the moment. So you'll have to keep on buying more sprigs.
They're not seeded, you said?
No, they're not. As of the moment, no.
9 months of quarantine there again.
No, if it's not quarantine, like we said, that it's a question of getting economies of scale. Once you're sure that the numbers are going to be there, once the businesses justifies the investment, then nobody's going to back out. After all, we are all businessmen sitting here. So it's a question of economies of scale for everything that we do, whether it is machines, whether it is grass, whatsoever. Everything's driven by scales over here now.
Sure. One question I had for both of you was about overseeding. Some golf courses in India have started overseeding their tees at least, and some have tried overseeding their fairways. Like leave aside DLF, but other golf courses have not been very successful in overseeding their golf courses, including DGC. Arvinder, you were there. I don't know if you overseeded those years or not. But what is your take on overseeding, and how do you think is that the right thing to do under Indian conditions, especially in North India?
Well, in the foothills of Shivalik, where we had winters for somewhere around 3 months, makes sense to have a greener golf course, greener looking golf. We did overseeding of ryegrass on the tees of the Delhi Golf Club, and we did the practice areas also at that time. Fairways and roughs were not done just because of the cost factor. Whereas we can say that putting in ryegrass makes the golf course look good, but you should also look at the agronomical aspect of the thing. Ryegrass being put down during winters, winters is the right time for ryegrass to grow. And when a plant grows, it requires water. Whereas our Bermuda during winters do not require that much amount of water. So you are putting extra water in the fairway. You're putting extra inputs in the on the golf course. You're putting extra, you can say, extra stress basically on the Bermuda grass. Bermuda is basically dormant at that time, but still you're putting unnecessary inputs where you could have done better by saving those inputs for other time for the growth of Bermuda. When we did the overseeding on the tees, we found out that basically ryegrass does not make any difference to the playability. It's more of an aesthetic thing.
Playability on the tees you're talking about.
Yeah, it's more of an aesthetic reason that ryegrass being there. If we have a dormant, Bermuda grass right now, because of the cost factors, many US golf courses have started just painting their fairways, and they are just painting their fairways, not even their roughs. They just paint their fairways instead of putting in ryegrass there. So it's just an added cost. If you say if we have some televised events or some mega events going on, then that makes more sense.
Yeah, I don't know the point you mentioned about coloring of the fairways that a lot of golf courses are doing. I think
Yeah.
that also is coming from the reason why a lot of people have felt that ryegrass changes the playability of the golf course on the
Well,
fairways and the roughs. Like you rightly said, on the tees, it doesn't make a difference because you just got to put a tee peg down.
yeah,
But it definitely changes the way the ball reacts on the fairways
it
and the
will.
roughs.
It will,
And
because you have a certain, you have a certain way of feeling that fairway at that certain time of the year. If your golf course is not being overseeded, you know how your fairway is going to respond. But when you have ryegrass, you have to put that much amount of water and that much amount of fertilizers and everything. It's like basic growth period time. Everything is going in. So that changes many things. And then with the ryegrass seeds, you also get in a bit of OA started on your fairways. That's also a problem which comes in with that thing. And then after every 2 or 3 years of overseeding, you have to give it a rest, because then it starts weakening the Bermuda sward. So that's also a thing.
every time there's a transition period where the rye is going out and the Bermuda is coming back in, those 15, 20, 30 days are always a big challenge and a eyesore for the golfers.
Yeah,
Where you see those patches of rye remaining on the golf course, and that's probably a worst period for a golf course, I think, for a Bermuda variety
yeah,
golf
that
course.
is.
Yeah.
Uh, I kind of slightly differ with this, because along with the aesthetic compulsion, there is also, I'd like this to add rather than differ, is that there is also an agronomic requirement. Yesterday, Colonel Rana put out certain numbers in terms of how many divots you're going to draw out if you're a busy course. Imagine that if I was 4 months dormant with Bermuda grass and I had all those golfers, winters is peak time to come and play golf. and everybody came and ripped my tea apart, irrespective, month one into winter, I'd be hitting out of sand with the kind of load factors.
That's the reason why teas were done up.
Yeah.
Only the teas were done up. But if you'd say for a place like Delhi or for the foothill region of India, dormancy is not that much of a problem. Growth is there; it's slow. So recovery is there. But rightly said, for par 3 teas or smaller teas and things like that, the divots are too much. So putting in dry grass makes sense there. But on the fairways and on the greens, that's totally on the like how the club perceives, or you can say what the club wants to draw out from that kind of an investment.
Correct. I couldn't disagree with you over there. So like we said, when you talk about the tees, you're on a par 5, you're obviously going to have landing zones. So you can be selective, but overseeding has its place in the system because it also does the job of protecting your natural grass, that is your base grass, while you're in the most difficult time for that grass to be thriving. A very right is that there's a lot of research that is happening in increasing the heat tolerance of cool season grasses. Kentucky Blue is seeing leaps and bounds of research happening in that extent. Now, if we can get a grass that can probably span the 35 or 40 degrees that the span that you have at DGC, let's take that for example. You have 2 months of extreme summers in Delhi and 10 months of temperatures which are about 35 degrees and below. If we do get a grass that you can probably sit with for the rest of the 10 months, and you have a Kentucky Blue which doesn't go to sleep that easily, maybe therein lies a solution to your problem, where we start thinking and looking at the research that is going around, that can we get a more heat tolerant cool season grass that we can manage for those 3 months and then be easy for the rest of the 9 months, rather than going vice versa, is a discussion that Ben and myself were having just a couple of days back, that he's been gathering a lot of data now, and we said, well, if the numbers show up something interesting, let's just invert the thinking process in total.
That's ultimately that's the call. Like, what do you want to draw with that kind of an investment? Like putting in seed, it's not a big thing. You can put in seed, you can have that thing done, but it's a huge investment.
It is a cost. It is a cost.
Yeah.
But gentlemen, I think we are running out of time. So before, well, we'll be ending it now. But both Mr. Damania and Mrs. Shah, I think one closing word to all the people who are attending this and people who are involved with the golf course. Just one closing word from each of you.
Yeah, you go on first.
I'd like to again extend my thanks to GCSMAI for conducting such a brilliant program. And this is something which was required with last year of such a dismal year, and 2021 also not looking so good till now. But it's a great thing that an initiative was taken, and this shows that the industry is taking initiative and trying to support the local inherent talent and bring up the local business up. That's a very great thing, and thanks for that. And well, that'll be my ending ending comment on that.
It's been an informative 3 days. We've had interesting sessions. This should be the first of many to come. Like we see, this can be one session, but there is a GCSMI session, and we are getting there. This is a small step in the right direction, and whatever support that is needed from all of us is always available.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you. We'll be ending the session here. I think there's
just one question here regarding weeds on Paspalum. So
yeah, go ahead.
If I can take that, if I can take that, who's the gentleman? Mr. Gaurav Syal.
Gaurav Syal, I think.
Yeah, the weeds, invasive weeds on paspalum is a problem because paspalum is not a grass for which many labeled chemicals are available in India. But the best part is that paspalum is highly salt tolerant. So we have started a trial of using salt for weed eradication, and it's been it has started showing some very interesting results. That will be a very, I think, that can be a topic on its own for a discussion in some other presentation or something. And it's really good to see how paspalum is performing with that, just using normal, common salt. And not only broadleaf, we are also controlling grassy with that right now.
Right. Thank you so much.